Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Alex Dworkin, and I'm a managing partner at 4D Capital. We specialize in one-of-a-kind mathematical work that allows us to predict the stock market and individual stocks with great accuracy. And we do so by calculating the market and individual stocks in multidimensional space. On top of that, we've developed a number of very powerful timing indicators, and when we combine both of them, or both of those, I should say, we can get very accurate calculations in terms of what the overall stock market or individual stocks will do going forward in both price and time. And we can typically do it on multiple time frames, whether it's short term or long term, doesn't really matter. I personally believe our work is nearly identical to what Jim Simmons was able to accomplish at Renaissance Technologies, if you're familiar with Jim. So as a firm, our goal is very simple. We are essentially trying to identify equities that will 2x, 5x, 10x, and do so within a relatively short period of time. And of course, who isn't trying to do that, correct? But we have a special weapon associated with our work. And that special weapon is our software that we've developed around our mathematical work that allows us to essentially identify upcoming turning points for any particular individual equity or the overall stock market. And then from those projections, and I'll show you today as an example for the stock that we're going to be looking at, which is going to be one of our super equities and fast movers together. From any particular bottom, we can essentially project well into the future exactly what that stock is going to do going forward in both price and time. And when we can scan, for example, the entire S&P 500, we can pick out only the best opportunities, the opportunities that will 2x, 5x, 10x, and so forth. And I personally believe, or I'm not aware of anybody else who has this capability or has this technology. So today we're going to be looking at one of our recent additions to both of our super equities and fast mover trading list. And this particular stock is STZ, Constellation Brands. And as you can see from here, let me unclick this. As you can see from here, it is moving into a major cycle bottom. And once that major cycle bottom is put in place, which I'm going to talk about when and at what price, then it's going to increase quite substantially into this mid-cycle top first, and then subsequently into the major cycle top. So we expect a major bottom essentially and a significant appreciation going forward. Now, I mentioned earlier that this is both our super equity as well as a fast mover, and the distinction is a fast mover is a fast mover or a stock that moves fast within a relatively short period of time, typically 12 months or less. But this particular stock satisfies both of those requirements, because once this particular bottom is put in place, it's going to increase quite substantially into this point first, but then later on it's going to essentially continue to rally into this major cycle top right here. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to explain very quickly exactly what people are looking at, particularly those who are not familiar with our work. If you want to get straight to the STZ forecast, please skip forward probably 2 to 3 minutes, and you're going to be in the midst of that of this analysis. So what you're looking at here, the triangles at the top and the bottom of the chart, is a very simplistic visual representation of a very complex mathematical concept where we scan the chart back, we identify cycle composites, and then we project them into the future. And those cycle composites essentially identify bottoms and the tops, as you can see here. So the bottom ones obviously identify bottoms, and the top ones identify the tops. What makes matter a little bit more or a little bit more difficult is that typically there are multiple composites that run in any given stock or the overall stock market at the same time. But if you know what they are and you can put them together, you can very closely replicate the actual two-dimensional time and price chart that you see in front of you. Okay, so as an example, I always use Dow Jones, and Dow Jones has 2 bottom composites and 2 top composites running at the same time. But again, if you put them together, you can very closely replicate what the actual stock market does in both time and price. And of course, you can narrow down the time frames or zoom out and look at the long-term chart. Doesn't really matter. It's the same concept, but it just plays out a little bit different. Okay, so the cycle composites get us into the neighborhood of where a very important turning point takes place. Depending on the length of the cycle, let's say plus or minus 2 months for these particular cycles, okay? So if we click on the bottom here, it is showing us that it expects a bottom for the stock in March of 2026. And then once the bottom is put in place, we anticipate a significant rally into this mid-cycle top and then subsequently into that major cycle top going forward. Now, what you see in front of you is, let me click this. You're going to see the lines, okay? So where composites get us into the neighborhood, what we call cycle clusters get us the exact date of when an upcoming turning point is going to take place. So as you can see here, that we have a major cluster or a number of them arriving over here. If you look at the left side, you're going to see we have 5 cycles, we have 4 cycles. So once again, this is a very complex mathematical concept being visually represented in a very easy format. So the difference here is that we scan the chart back, but this time around we use our proprietary cycles. And what we found over the years is that typically stocks or the overall market tops or bottoms not when any given particular cycle arrives, but when there's a multitude of cycles arriving at the same time. So if we have 2, 5, 10 cycles, the more the better, arriving at the same time or on the same day, we know there's going to be a very significant turning points occurring there. So for example, we had, or I use Dow Jones always as an example, so March 6, 2009, we had 15 cycles plus or minus 1 trading days arriving around that juncture. And as you know, we had a very important turning point. But if you're familiar with this kind of work and you know how these cycle clusters work, you can very easily identify exactly when any particular stock or the overall stock market will top or bottom, because there's going to be a cluster of those cycles arriving at the same time. And the stronger they are, the higher the probability of a turning point occurring there. So once again, now that I've explained everything, basically what we are looking at here is that these cycle clusters confirm our cycle composites, that we are due for a significant bottom right here at in around March of 2026. So the question becomes, where's the bottom and how far are we going to go to the upside? And this particular chart answers that question. So what you see on the chart in front of you, I'm sure it doesn't make any sense to you, but it makes perfect sense to us. This is yet another visual representation of our three-dimensional calculations. So just bear with me, I'll explain it. So basically what this particular chart is saying is that STZ will bottom right here within this green region that has a pretty significant range, actually 95 to 115, let's say. So quite significant range, but our short-term calculation can pinpoint this particular target with much greater accuracy. We have a 30-day free trial associated with our work, so if you would be interested in looking at actual time and price projection for this particular stock, and as well as trading advice, which is something I don't talk about on this free forum, please request it, link in the description of this video, and then you can see for this particular stock, but also a tremendous amount of information for the overall stock market, other stocks, super equities, fast movers, our 52 mega cap stocks that we follow on a weekly basis. So anyway, going back to this particular stock, this is where we anticipate the bottom, and once the bottom is put in place, let me show you how powerful our software is. So our software can project into the bottom, exactly where the bottom is going to be already at this stage. So we're basically not taking any risk. We're sitting and waiting for this bottom to arrive. When it does arrive, there's going to be a very small margin of error associated with this particular bottom, that, for example, if it goes below a certain threshold by, let's say, 1 to 3%, which is our margin of error, stop loss, whatever you want to call it, then we know that the forecast has failed and we get out of the position. But in this particular case, this is where the bottom is going to be, okay? So once we know where the bottom is going to be, we can project with great accuracy exactly where the stock is going to go to the upside. So all we have to do is this. It's actually running a lot of calculations in the background, not important, but that's what it's showing, okay? So it's saying that at the very least, once this bottom is put in place, typically this region fails, not very important, but typically we're going to go to at least this particular juncture, so $330, $350 a share, okay? So that's approximately a 300% return within a fairly relatively short period of time. And but those who are familiar with our work, I've been saying this for a long time, typically, particularly for longer term tops and bottoms, when you see a darker green region as you see here, that typically means there's a high mathematical probability for the stock to go here as opposed to here. So if we look at this particular region, we see $450 approximately. So that's a 400% return within a relatively short period of time of, well, there are two different cycles. One is very short, so perhaps we get to this level, and then secondary level is here. So it's going to be time based on what the actual return is going to be. But let's say, 2 years, 2 to 3 years to attain most of it. Okay. So as you can see, very good output. Once again, we have a free trial associated with our work. If you would be interested in this stock and attaining its exact time and price projections for the actual bottom, and then seeing our exact projections for the top, please request a free trial. We also have a wealth of information there as well in terms of the overall stock market. As I mentioned, 52 mega cap stocks that we follow, which includes all the big guys as well as some of the commodities, currencies, etc. And we have super equities, we have fast movers, we have trading parameters. So if you would be interested in any of that information, please request. We set you up, no strings, no credit cards attached. Okay. We also have a webinar coming up in next Friday. What is next Friday? Let me see. It is going to be November 14th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And we talk about the overall composition of the stock market at the present time, which we typically don't do because that's our bread and butter. We also talk about or showcase our software and how it is able, for example, to scan the entire S&P 500 and pick out only the best opportunities. I believe you'll find it fascinating. And we also talk about how we calculate the market in multidimensional space. So I believe you're going to find all of that information quite useful, and it's not something that you've heard before. Okay. So I think that's it. Thank you very much for your time. We're going to be back with another stock update tomorrow. I believe we're going to be looking at Facebook or Meta. And I think you're going to find it quite fascinating in terms of analysis because it's behaving exactly as it should be behaving. So thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day ahead. Bye-bye.